bet your Captain America helmet's looking like this or like this. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Luke, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through what it took to make Sam Wilson's Captain America helmet from A Brave New World, plus a little bit of problems. I ended up printing two of these helmets. As you can see, this one looks garbage and this one looks half decent. So in this video I'm going to be taking you through what it takes to get the files, editing some files, priming, sanding, wet sanding, and then painting and finishing, and also making some resin printed eyes along with an actual real pipe rather than something 3D printed. Plus the big fail that comes right at the end where, well, you'll find out. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to need is some files. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do is get some 3D files. Now, the place that I'm going to be getting these from is DO3D. This is their Captain America Brave New World Sam Wilson helmet. So these files, they're perfect. They're all cut up into multiple parts. So I'll be most likely for this project FDM printing, so these sorts of 3D printers, and then resin printing. So I'll probably be most likely FDM printing this piece, and probably this piece, and then I will be resin printing the little arrow sort of thing and these side details, and we'll be resin printing the eyes, very similar to my Ant-Man helmet, where we're just going to be adding some red dye to some clear resin to give obviously this sort of effect. I'm also not going to be printing the pipe for this project, which is this piece. I'm actually going to be using some of this stuff, which is 20mm pipe. I'll be going through this later on in the video, and we've also got to edit some files to make this happen. But obviously if you don't want to use this, just print it as normal, sand it, and then just paint it. So without further ado, let's get these onto the printers and get them sanded. Alright, so here we're going to now cut up the pipe so that we've got the two fittings, which is this piece and this piece. This way we can attach it to the print much easier. And this bit is only if you want to be using this sort of corrugated looking pipe which looks identical to this. It's just real pipe. The reason I'm doing this is I feel like it's probably more screen accurate, but there's really no need if you don't want to. So if you don't want to, just skip to this timestamp. But otherwise, I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do this, which is just going to be importing it into Mesh Mixer, going over to Edit, and then Plane Cut. So our main goal is just to try slice these as best as we can. Okay, so I'm going to say that's pretty good for this piece. So we're just going to go over to here and keep both. We do not want to be discarding half of it. So we're just going to select keep both and accept. Then we're just now going to go back to Plane Cut, and we're going to plane cut this little piece down here, and that looks pretty good. So we're just going to do the same. Instead of discard half, keep both, and then hit accept. Now with that done, we're going to go over to here into separate shells, and there we go. So we've separated the top connector and the bottom connector, and whatever this little piece is, which we can just hold shift and connect the other two, and then go over to here, click combined. So we do not need this, so we're just going to delete this, and we don't need this, so we're just going to delete it. So there we go. So now with those two pieces cut, we can now import it into Cura or whatever slicer you're using, get them resin printed, FDM printed, either one, and then we're going to go and try and attempt to fit the hose onto these caps. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is hit the whole helmet with a pass of 80 grit sandpaper on an electric sander. This way that your arm doesn't die. And we're also just knocking down all of the layer lines that were formed throughout the print. Then once you've done that, you're going to hit it with a hand sand of 80 grit. This is just to get in all the nooks and crannies that you might not have been able to reach. And also please make sure to wear a respirator, because this kicks up a lot of plastic and dust which you don't want to breathe. Now I'm going to hit it with a wood filler. This is just to fill any of the deeper valleys and crevices that I might not have been able to sand. These are most larger imperfections that I find in the prints, but it's easy enough to do. Then the last step is hit the whole helmet with a pass of 180 grit sandpaper and just knocking it all back to make it super duper smooth, and you just sort of rinse and repeat this exact same step over and over again until you get a super nice smooth base. And yes, please wear a respirator. Right, so let's go through the lens. Now these are still a bit of a work in progress, a bit of a trial. For the sake of this video, I'm going to call these good just to get the video out in time and to also get this helmet done. but I guess the longer that you spend doing this, the longer and the better it's going to look. I ended up using a combination of just some eSun clear film resin, and also then just a couple dyes by Monocure 3D, just to try and get it to the tint that I wanted. But looking back on this, I probably should have gotten some clear red just to make it easier and not have to worry about the dyeing as such. But I'm pretty happy with how they came out for at least the first try. This definitely needs a lot more refinement. Ryro Studios over on Instagram is also going through this same process of trying to find the best way to do this, and he's doing an incredible job. So definitely go and check him out. I'll leave a link down in the description to go and see his Instagram, where he's figuring it out a lot better than I have. But it's a lot of trial and error. The more buffing and shining and sanding that you do, the better it's going to end up looking. I used a combination of 800 and 2500 just to try and get it down, but pretty much I'll take you through the rest of the time lapse after this. Alright, so let's talk about the pipe. So I've 3D printed the connectors that we'd cut earlier and have attached it to this. This is like 20mm flexi pipe is what I think it's called. This stuff's super cheap, it's not hard to get. But the really good thing about this is that it looks exactly the same as the pipe that we need for the helmet. It's also really good because it's flexible, so we can pose it into any shape that we sort of need, which in our case we're going to need it to bend a fair bit. So I've just duct taped for the meantime on the pipe, which then they friction fit, which will end up being glued on. And there you go. This sort of gets the picture, is that the pipe attaches to one side and then the other. This will need to be wet sanded down, so I'm probably going to hit this with like a 2000 or a 180 and build my way up or something like that to sort of just give this some bite for the paint to grip onto it. We'll see how this goes. I'm testing this as we speak. But yeah, it sort of looks quite good actually. Worst comes to worst, I'll just 3D print the pipe and we'll see how it goes. But it's really interesting to just sort of give it a try and see what we can get. So now that that is out of the way, we're going to get on to filling this and priming it again so we can get some paint on it. Alright, so let's talk about the paint. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do after the helmet has been primed and wet sanded is hit the whole helmet with a coat of gloss black. This is just the Rust-Oleum gloss black. It comes in a can, so it's really easy to use. You can use it in an H4P gun or any other high gloss black, but I would recommend this one. This one's really easy to work with. Then that's a super important step, as the next thing we're going to be doing is hitting the whole helmet with some chrome. So I'm going to be shooting it with Alumoluster. So yes, I'm going to be using an H4P gun. Not everyone's going to be able to use Alumoluster. So the other option is Duralumin, but both of these do have to go through a spray gun. So another option for people who might just want to have the helmet for a bit of fun is just use one of this. It's just a chrome paint by Rust-Oleum, which also works equally as well. But yes, for this helmet, I'm going to be going Alumoluster. So then after that, we're going to need to spray the whole helmet in white. But before we do that, we're going to need to tape off the helmet. So for this, I'm just using the delicate yellow frog tape. I find this stuff's really easy to use. It's a little bit more expensive, but it doesn't leave as much of a tack as standard masking tape. So do that as what you will. So then the next option is the blue or the white variants. For this, I'm going with the white variant. I like it a lot better. So I'm just going to be using some of this, which is Rust-Oleum Gloss White. This stuff's in a can, so yet again, it's super easy to use, and it's not too expensive, and this will do the helmet entirely. Then with that out of the way, the final thing we're going to need to do is hit the whole helmet with a 2K gloss clear coat. So I'm going to be using MS22 2K clear coat. This does have to be shot through a HVLP gun, so not everyone is going to be able to do that. But the other option is just some of this, which is just the Duplicolor 2K clear coat. This stuff's super easy to get and it's super cheap. So yeah, that's pretty much all the paint. It's actually surprisingly easy. We're just going to be hitting it with the gloss black, to then followed on by the Alumiluster or your chrome, and then tape it off, then a little bit of white over the rest of the helmet, then seal it all off with the 2K gloss clear coat. So now with that out of the way, let's get the helmet painted. Alright, so as you can see, the whole helmet is now complete. I'm just going through with a small paintbrush and some black Tamiya paint, filling in all the valleys and channels that are within this model. Now, the reason I'm doing this is it just gives a really good contrast between the white and the chrome, and shows that little bit more detail that's within this helmet. Now, as you can see, I've been wiping it down with a wet paper towel, just to remove any excess or spillage onto the helmet. But if it has dried, I would recommend the Tamiya enamel thinner. That removes all of the black perfectly fine, and if you're really careful, it won't remove any of the spray paint. Now, this is completely optional, but I wanted to add a little bit more detail just to give the model justice. Well, this probably shouldn't be in the video, but well, it is. So I'm going to learn from my mistakes and not put a heavy clear coat on my projects. I probably should have done the mist coat, but I've never had a crack in clear coating before ever as this bad. Both the white pieces, so the chin and the head, have been absolutely destroyed. So I'm going to have to resand them back at 180 grit and just knock it all back and restart. The good thing is these side panels saved. The arrow is completely fine. The back bit that goes on there is also fine. But here's a great lesson to learn, that when people say put a mist coat on with your clear coat, you're basically misting it on. Don't go heavy at the start, because this is most likely going to happen. It's not that the white wasn't dry enough. The white was completely dry. It was more just I went too heavy at the start and have paid the consequences. But that's all right. I'm learning from my mistakes, and this is what happens every time when you're building something, is you're always going to learn something new and always succeed in something different. And there's a great example. I thought I'd just quickly jump into the video very quickly and just explain in a little bit more detail. It was also a matter of the clear coat, but also a matter of the base coat that I used. From using that Rust-Oleum spray paint can, that's where a lot of the issues started. I had used an acrylic base coat, whereas the clear coat is a different type, and with acrylics they shrink and expand during hot and cold temperatures, rather where the clear coat is solid no matter what. And obviously when one thing tries to shrink but something else isn't, it's gonna lead to what happened. So it's a bit of a bummer, but it doesn't matter. I'm filming this currently while editing 2 days before the video should be up. I have since then completely restarted. I reprinted the helmet. I have already got it done. I'm looking at two parts. There's one part here which is already clear coated and also looks like a far better. So do definitely be careful with what paints. I do have to give a massive thank you to Stacey and Andrew from iWater and Nesta in Australia. They have been an absolute dream to help, and also to Melbourne Ironman as well, for explaining out a lot of the paint issues that I've had, because I'm a bit of an amateur painter. I still have zero clue what I'm doing half the time. But this is where I've obviously learned a lot, and learnt that different paints don't like each other. So definitely, if you're sticking with rattle cans, stick with rattle cans. And if you're sticking with H4P, stick with them. Do not try and cross brands. Don't try and cross things just because you think you can. Definitely check with other people, see, test. Don't do it on proper projects. But now we're just going to jump all the way back and then all the way back again to the completed helmet. So time for a jump back in time and then to the outro.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
And well, that pretty much does it. The helmet is complete with a day to spare before this YouTube video comes out. Now, I did learn quite a lot through building these two helmets. As you can see, this one completely failed, but we learned to not use acrylics and other different paints together and stick, maybe if you're doing an acrylic helmet, stick with all rattle cans with acrylics. And if you're doing an H4P version, stick with that, but also be very careful with what clear coats and everything that you're using, and make sure they're compatible, because, well, that's sort of your end result. I learned a lot through this project, and I'm not too fussed about having this. This will probably go in the bin. I've just kept this for YouTube's sakes because, well, it's funny. But this helmet, I definitely can improve upon it, as most of my projects I do. But I wanted to change the shine a little bit. That might have been just because of the clear coat near towards the end, me rushing it. But I can always make the helmet again if I want to, but I have a bit of PTSD from doing this, so probably not again. A lot of the chrome pieces, like the attachments and the sides, they all look really amazing because that's what the paints I was used to and also did correctly. And, well, the white definitely could be a little bit shinier and less orange peely. It makes do for the YouTube video and also gives you guys the option knowing what to do and what to avoid. And thank you so much to everyone who helped me out through this project, and thank you to you guys for watching this video. I hope you really learned something. I definitely know I did, like I've said. And, well, now time for the final result.